If you are buying a home, you have certainly heard the phrase home inspection. But do you actually know what a home inspection is, what the inspector does, what he's looking for, what doesn't count towards the inspection? You may have a good idea, but the purpose of this video is to clarify things. So the first thing you need to know is that the inspector's job is to look for material defects, which means things and systems in the house that are not working properly. That means, for example, if you have a roof that's leaking, or you have a window that does not open and close or lock properly, that means it is not working as intended. So that's a material defect. The other thing that an inspector looks for is safety issues. So a loose banister leading down to the basement, a bunch of cracks or heaves in the driveway that could be tripping hazards, an improperly vented water heater that means the pitch is potentially allowing carbon monoxide to come back into the basement, those kinds of things. So material defects and safety issues are what the inspector is looking for. What the inspector is not looking for, what falls into the it doesn't count category, is cosmetic damage. So things like hardwood floors or rugs with stains, old dated Formica countertops in the kitchen, wallpaper that is peeling off the walls. Those things do not compromise the integrity of the structure of the house. They are a system that is really just decorative. It's not necessary for the wallpaper to be totally attached to the wall because it isn't really doing a job. It's just decorative. So understand what the inspector is looking for, and then those other things that fall outside of the scope of an inspection. So on the exterior of the house, the inspector is looking for things having to do with the property or the grounds. So if there's a big area that's boggy when it rains, if there is, again, a driveway problem or garage doors that don't work or have a lot of rot. But then they'll look at the rest of the building envelope. They'll look at the sheathing material, whether it's brick or it's vinyl or it's stucco, whatever the sheathing is, that has to be in good shape. Inspectors will look at the roof and the chimney, and also outside they'll look at things like trees that might be dead or trees that are overhanging the roof, because that can be a hazard in a storm. You can get a branch come through the roof. So those are the sorts of things that they look for on the exterior of the house. Inside, they're going to look at the electric panel, make sure there are no double taps or safety problems there. They'll look for exposed wires and examine the service cable with the power that comes into the house. They will check outlets to make sure they are grounded and make sure there's no exposed junction boxes or anything that could be a hazard or something that's not working properly with the electrical system. Similarly, plumbing. Not only do they look for leaks, but they check that toilets are attached firmly to the floor. They'll make sure that the water pressure is decent and that the drains are draining properly and you don't have slow drains. They'll also check the water heater and make sure that there is a TPV safety valve and make sure it's vented properly, it's not rusting or leaking. And they'll, of course, check the heating and air conditioning to make sure that those systems are working properly as well. In the attic, they'll check the structure and the insulation and venting, and also look for structure in the joists in the basement and make sure there's no water coming in the basement. They'll also potentially look for termites in the joists and just make sure that the structure is sound. Then they'll make sure that windows and doors open and close and latch and lock properly. And they also will usually examine the built-in appliances. So that's your oven, stove, dishwasher, usually microwave. Washers and dryers, because they are not built in, are often excluded from an inspection, as are refrigerators, unless the refrigerator's built in. So that's an overview. It's definitely not every detail, but an overview of what inspectors are looking at and what they're not looking at.